Okay, I'm live. Just to let you know how far off the color balance is on my webcam, this jacket, which is showing up as a sort of turquoise blue, is actually a deep purple, almost violet. If I can get it into shadow, it kind of the way it really is. So let's see. No, turning off the lamp doesn't change it. Oddly enough, the inside, which is showing up as purple, is the correct color. So I don't know what's with this crazy webcam. Huh. Anyway, just a quickie to let you know. I'm sorry I tried to do a video a few days ago, but the internet kept going down, so I had to give up. I'm not feeling well today, but it is not any kind of virus. It's just my sinuses. They hate the way this weather keeps changing. I use coffee mugs quite often for other drinks. That happens to be a cup of juice. And I have my little owl glass with water to stay hydrated. But keep in mind, water by itself can run you into trouble. It'll leach out all the minerals from your body. All right, what's that cat doing? Oh well, cats, they're crazy. So always make sure you get some juice or even a soda, something with both sugar and salt. Don't listen to the salt Nazis. Hi, Don. Let's see. Good afternoon. I got itchies. Anyway, my sinuses are just tired of the way the weather keeps changing. No snow lately, but we might get some by Monday. Um, we're a little low in altitude for snow, but it keeps raining, and then we'll have a little bit of sun, and then it'll rain again. And folks, I use a clothesline to dry my clothes. So I have some clothing hanging in the house near the wall heater. Takes a long time for them to dry that way, but they'll never dry out in the rain. Oh well. Anyway, no, I haven't caught anything lately. No flu, no coronavirus, but I am kind of hunkering down in my little house. It's really a cabin, or I call it a cottage. It's a little mountain home. Because if I should pick up a virus, I'm not worried so much about myself as I would be about spreading it to other people. I used to say that I have an immune system like Godzilla, and it's still pretty good. I eat well and so forth. One time, I was like 42 or 43. I had scarlet fever, which is still considered a deadly disease, but it's quite rare. Apparently, not completely gone because I caught it. I was um, Well, I was staying at my dad's house, and dad was old, and so was his wife. So I got a whole bunch of bottled water and lemonade and shut myself in my room for 3 days until the fever broke. And then I avoided contact with them until the rash was gone. It was quite the fever. Um, they recommend that you not use aspirin if you can avoid it. Apparently, taking aspirin while you have scarlet fever or the measles is not recommended. But I kept hydrated. So if I were to get, oh, the flu or coronavirus or whatever, I'd focus on staying hydrated. And of course, washing my hands frequently, which I do anyway. It's a good idea when you have a cat, even an indoor cat, and it's a good idea in general. Just don't go freaking out. The coronavirus is more deadly than the flu, but technically it is in the same class of viruses. Oh, I've got eye itchies. That goes with the sinus problems. It's changing weather. Sorry. I'm just really upset that the camera thinks my jacket is turquoise blue. It's deep purple, almost violet. And yet, the lining comes out pretty close to the right color. Webcam is weird. Oh, itchies. Okay, I'll be washing my hands when I get through. I don't put much stock in hand sanitizer. It's useful if you are, and warm water is the way to go if you can. But don't worry so much about one specific virus. There's still flu going around. Not so much measles anymore because so many people are vaccinated. I don't get the flu virus the flu shot because, one, I haven't had the flu since 1969. Might have been 68, the winter. It was either December of 68 or January of 69. And even though I had the flu, I was taking care of all the sick people in my family. I wasn't terribly ill. Anyway, they never seem to choose the right flu shot. There are different strains, and they have to guess at which one is going to break out. For example, this winter they were giving the shot for influenza A, but the virus that's going around is influenza B. Yeah, if you catch the flu, you won't be as sick, but it won't. Oh, hi, Lady Zaga. Um, since I don't have any wrenches, I'm going to give one to Lady Zaga because I know her from many sites, many YouTube channels. There you go. Lady Zaga is now a moderator. Anyway, um, I would like to have the MMR and the pneumonia shot because most people who die from these viruses are actually dying from pneumonia. Oh, not too cold today. Thanks, Maximilian. Let's see. And Crichton. Oh, Crichton has a wrench too. No, it's close to 60 degrees right now in Fahrenheit. That's well, it's considered cool, but not cold. But overnight it gets down into the high 30s. Don, I'd still have a bunch of it left. Hi, Dave. Ah, Mel's Wheels is Dave. Um, Now a cigarette lasts 2 or 3 minutes. I went ahead and got the 99s this time. Eh, not ready to smoke one, but thought I'd show you that they're a bit longer than the usual cigarette. But eh, they seem a lot milder than the short ones. I actually caught the measles a couple years ago. I shouldn't be able to catch it since I had the measles and the German measles as a child, but I was around someone who had recently been vaccinated with the MMR shot. I was very fortunate. My oldest brother went to kindergarten while I was an infant, and I caught those three nasty childhood diseases from him because he caught them while at school in kindergarten, age 5. Well, I especially remember that when I had the chicken pox, which makes little blisters, mom put mittens on my hands, knitted wool mittens, the kind where your fingers are completely covered, not gloves, not with fingers, so I wouldn't scratch the um, blisters and get scars. The mumps was probably more painful than mumps or rubella. Rubella is what we call German measles. I had that later. I think I was 12, 11 or 12 when I got rubella. And mom freaked out because you can go blind from seeing bright lights while you have rubella. And she went so far overboard. She put outside for anything. Well, the problem is, it lasts at least 3 days, and the way I pass the time when I'm bored is by reading a book. I had to smuggle a flashlight in to my bedroom so I could read books while mom wasn't watching. The only lamp I had was the ceiling lamp, the built in, so if I flipped the switch and put the light on, she'd come and turn it off and tell me off. I had pneumonia once. I was really run down. I had a 2-year-old and a 45-year-old 2-year-old. I ended up in the emergency room because I was coughing so hard. It really, really hurt. And they told me I also had pleurisy, an inflammation of the lining of your chest. And they showed me the x-ray and said, see those scars? They will never go away. Well, about 10 years later or so, I had my chest x-rayed for some other reason, and there were no scars. I was telling the x-ray tech about the pleurisy scars he'd probably see, and he said, no, there's no scars. And pneumonia is awful. You feel like you're drowning. But because I was still able to cough, they didn't admit me to the hospital. They sent me home. Uh, Told me to hold a pillow when I coughed so I wouldn't, well, it wouldn't hurt so bad and I wouldn't damage my rib cage. And they gave me some kind of, antihistamine or something. The next day I went to my doctor for a follow up, and the first thing he said was, "Did they give you any pain pills?" No, I didn't ask for them and they didn't offer them. So he immediately wrote a prescription for Darvocet, which you can't get anymore. They claim it's highly addictive or it causes heart disease. So let's switch to what was the next one? Vicodin. Now they don't want you taking Vicodin. It's highly addictive and causes heart disease. So take this other stuff. I think they call it Norco. And I'm like, hello. Personally, I get more relief from aspirin. I never used all the Darvocet that was prescribed for me. I didn't need it, but I never touched Tylenol. It can cause irreversible liver damage and a blood disease. It basically cracks your red blood cells so they don't work anymore. That scares me a lot more than pneumocide. So maybe, I don't know. I eat lots of fruits and veggies. And that might be one reason why my health has been pretty good all these years. My problem now is I'm 30 pounds underweight and my spine is falling apart from arthritis, so I'm 2 inches shorter than I used to be. But I'm working on it. 2 years of seeing the doctor regularly, I didn't get any help. Well, when I was taking Vicodin for a broken leg, I was in real pain. But by the third day, I realized that I was having withdrawal symptoms between doses. I only took the pill when I was supposed to, but I started to notice withdrawal symptoms. So I got rid of them and just went through withdrawals all at once, never touched them again. I never had that problem with Darvocet, so I guess, heroin or whatever. I've had chiropractic treatments, but I don't think my Medicare covers them, and I can't afford to pay for them at this time. The chiropractic treatments used to help, though, I'll admit that. But I do have the home exercises, written out in on paper with illustrations and stuff, so I can at least do the exercises to stretch out. And when I do them, yeah, I get back an inch sometimes if I do them religiously. And I'm tired of people telling me it's my posture. I don't sit straight or stand straight. Well, I was born with a mild case of, lost the word. I'll just put it this way. My the last few bones in my spine were not calcified. My tailbone was just cartilage, spina bifida. Very mild case. I'm able to walk, but I never could sit up straight, ever. I can consciously put my shoulders back and stand straight, but it feels awful and it limits the movement of my arms because it isn't natural for me. Network chiro is energy work. Well, I went to a gentle chiropractor. I had been to one who was a little rougher, turned out to be my new chiropractor's teacher. But on my neck, he would flip my head real quick, and I didn't like that. It scared me, so I made him quit doing it. This new chiropractor uses a thing like a pile driver. It goes ping, only it doesn't hurt. It's just a gentler way of getting your neck bones lined up properly. Yeah, well, I think I can afford to get a legitimate massage, and that might work out for me. It'd feel nicer than chiropractic. I was always, an inch taller, but in pain when I left the office. And I do have my own zapper. What's it called? It's got little pads that zap your muscles with TENS, TENS. That stands for something, but I don't remember what it stands for. But you put these little pads on the spot. For me, it's my back, and they're attached to wires, and you turn on the little box that's powered by a little battery, and it goes zoom, zoom, zoom. You aren't supposed to jump. If you do that, you've set it too high. It's supposed to just gently stimulate your muscles, and that really helps too. I have a love-hate relationship with my neti pot. So even though my sinuses are bothering me, I'm getting by this time with deep sea premium saline. I can't get it to where you can read it. Oh well. Anyway, it's from the pharmacy, but no prescription needed. You don't want to use plain tap water to breathe into your sinuses, and I don't want the nasal spray that has medication in it. This is just salt water, and it's um what's the word? No germs in it. And you just spray into your sinuses to moisten them. Okay, non-medicated relief for dry, irritated noses, relieves dryness from allergy, sinus, and cold medications. It's, I want to say sanitary, but there's a better word for it. Anyway, the neti pot, first, I have to boil the water. Yes, I got some distilled water, but you know what? It's cold. My nose hates it bad enough, yeah, but distilled water is cold. It really hurts going in. And I'm afraid that if I put it in the tea kettle or a pan to warm it, well, I guess that might work. I might warm it in a saucepan. Sterilized. Yeah, sterile. Thank you, strontium. Wow, I've got at least 3 wrenches in here. Cool. I like having moderators, then I don't have to worry about the chat. I have a Facebook group in which people have been so obnoxious I had to boot them out and block them. There's TENS units on eBay, huh? Well, I already have one. And I managed to get one for my brother who is on Kaiser and can't get chiropractic covered. Trolls, yes, they're worse than trolls, though. I have been called everything but a human being. If I delete a post or a comment, all of a sudden let's see, homophobic, xenophobic, prejudiced, bigoted, evil. So I block them, and then I never get notified when they say those things, so I never see it. I'm brave to be live on the internet. Well, it's only YouTube. And they used to say, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. They never saw those words. They've even used that 4-letter word that starts with C. I never use that, not against my worst enemy or most hated troll. Never. But I've been called that. Ah, Medicare will cover basic except the annual, what do you call it? Physical exam? Yeah, well, that's what's stopping me now. It's about $250 uh, to get some x-rays and answer a silly questionnaire. Righteous indignation. Righteous indignation was when Jesus picked up some ropes, turned them into a whip, and chased the money changers out of the temple. That's righteous indignation. Meek and mild Jesus, my patootie. He whipped the money changers and drove them out of his father's house. $30 for the annual. Yeah, but that's North Carolina. I'm kind of stuck in California. Born and raised here and never managed to escape. And you cannot beat our climate and geography. But I'm ready to leave. Thing is, even in North Carolina, I can't rent anything that I can afford. I added up my mortgage payment, taxes, and insurance, and I have, well, it's only one bedroom. It's 400 square feet, but it's on a nice big lot where I can have a garden, and everything except repairs and maintenance comes to about 600 a month. In North Carolina, I might be able to get a studio apartment for 600 a month, but I doubt it. In California, forget it. A studio apartment is like, depending on where you are, you can be paying 1,000 a month or more. Anyway, um, shoot, I wasn't going to talk this long, but since I have all these nice people in my chat room, I'll keep going. Um, well, Lady Zaga, spectrum type people. I'm kind of on the autism spectrum, but I think it's more from my horrible childhood than from anything you could diagnose and treat. However, I can't take stimulants. They put me to sleep. I'm okay with coffee and tea, but they don't keep me awake at night. They calm me down. If I take a stimulant, the doctor tried that once when I was a teenager and needed to um, be a little more active and I was tired. Huh? I took a nice long nap. Yeah. Well, I was worried about my son because when he was very small, he was a toe walker. When he first started walking, he would run around on tiptoes, but he outgrew that. I think he did it for fun. But he didn't speak until he was he was two a little over 2 years old. He said his first sentence. His first word, by the way, wasn't mama. It was da da. He was daddy's boy. But his first sentence, if you could call it that, was lettuce, yuck. I was making a salad and he didn't like lettuce. But he didn't talk much, and I guess he didn't have anything to say. Kind of like Mozart, who it, no, 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 sorry, not Mozart. Lord Byron, the poet, friend of Shelley, and so forth. Lord Byron had not spoken a word, and when he was 7 years old, he was at a party, I guess at his parents' house, and he something happened and his hand got burned, and one of the ladies was sympathizing with him, and he spoke his first words. Thank you, madam, but the agony has abated somewhat. So they learned that he just had nothing to say before that. Mozart is the one who composed a symphony at age 7. How such a filthy specimen of the dregs of humanity could have such talent is beyond me. He was a scumbag, and then some. But oh my lord, his music, oh, and that movie Amadeus doesn't begin to show the half of his can't think of the word. Oh, that's what's going on. There's a kitty cat. Uh, it's okay, sweetie. Tora. Um, I guess the neighbors down the street don't take very good care of their cat. He shouldn't be outside in the rain, but he's out there crying. He's hungry, and apparently they don't feed him much either. Uh, well, what can I do? I have fed him, but I can't let him in because Tora, who actually lives here, won't allow it. Ah, interesting, Crichton. Your nephew also walked on his toes? Ju- He, don't say I remind you of someone who killed her parents. I wanted to kill them, well, especially Mom, the devil's sister, but I didn't do it. Uh, in fact, I carry a bit of guilt because the last thing I ever said to Mom, I was on the phone with her. And it wasn't in so many words, but the gist of it was drop dead. The next day, my brother called me on the phone and said, Are you sitting down? Mom is, long pause. I thought he was going, no, he just said mom and then long pause. And I thought he was going to tell her what other mean thing she had done. And then, after the pause, he says, is dead. I- So I told her to drop dead, and she did. She was 58 years old and still trying to run my life and her son's life and so forth. She had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and she abused all of us in many ways. My oldest brother Rick drank himself to death at age 50. Oh, the story I told reminds you of, oh, Mozart. Okay, yeah, well, Mozart died young. I think he was in his 30s. He led such a debauched lifestyle that he caught some kind of disease that did him in. They say it was pneumonia, but I wonder. Pneumonia is the thing that hits you while your immune system is knocked down from some other infection. Yeah, well, cause of death? Oh, for mom, the coroner did 2 autopsies. He said her heart stopped beating, but he couldn't figure out why. She had some hardening of the arteries, but it was just normal for her age and not a concern. He found some methamphetamine in her system, but he didn't think it was enough to kill her. I think she wore her heart out. She was an alcoholic so bad that she kept vodka on her bedside table so she wouldn't have to get up to take a drink in the middle of the night or in the morning. And she would take the methamphetamine, which was timed release. She was stealing someone else's prescription, and she would take this time released methamphetamine so she could go to work. Well, I hope she's banned from contacting her family. If she killed her mother and tried to kill her father, why isn't she in prison? I have no sympathy for people who use the child abuse defense. Unless that person is attacking you in that moment, it isn't self defense. Oh, she is in prison. Good, good, good. I'm getting, well, I'm a recovering English teacher, but I still get upset when people use jail and prison interchangeably. They are not the same. Jail is downtown where the local police or sheriffs keep you until you have your trial. And if your sentence is less than 1 year, you're in jail. If it's a felony, you're in prison, and that's run by the state or federal government. Totally different place. And even worse, he's being held on $50,000 bail. No, if he's on bail, he's out on bail. If he's being held in lieu of bail, and I'd better spell that out. It's Lieu, lieu. It's French. It doesn't have to make sense because it's French. I tried to learn French. I took 1 semester at the junior college and I had a tutor, and I barely pulled a B. I couldn't remember the word for cheese. I remember the word for fish now because of an Agatha Christie story. in which they thought that, I think it was Poirot. No, no, it wasn't Poirot. It was Mrs. Marple. She thought the servant had said fish, poisson, but he had said poisson, poison. They're almost the same. Two S's, it's fish, and one S is poison. Penitentiary, yeah, penitentiary is a prison. It's just a fancy word for prison, but it isn't a jail. Well, I like the beauty of the French language. I really do. I just am not able to learn it. And I can read it if I have a dictionary, a French English dictionary right beside me, but I can't pronounce it. So if I ever go to France, I won't insult them by trying to use their language. I'll just hope they speak English. I used to be pretty good in German, but I've lost most of my vocabulary because I never have a chance to use it. And I learned a little Spanish in high school, but it's mostly food and a few cuss words that I picked up later in, later in life, in my 30s, because I lived near the barrio. Anyway, oh yeah, and some Filipinos. Most people don't realize that, but before the Philippines became independent, Filipinos were American citizens, and many of them came here to live and work, especially in California. Some of the best doctors and nurses you'll ever meet are Filipino, and they're Americans usually. It's harder for them to immigrate now that they're independent from us and not a US territory. But anyway, a lot of them, most of them speak Spanish because it used to be a Spanish colony. So I picked up a little Spanish from Filipinos that I knew. That's interesting. Lots of Filipinos in Toronto. Probably because all of a sudden we're not letting people immigrate. And that brings me to a point I've been meaning to make and never get the opportunity. Well, up to a certain up to a certain age, they aren't anymore because the Philippines is independent. But people who were born in the Philippines, I forget what actual year that was, probably 1990 or thereabouts. The Philippines voted to be independent, and since we are not King George of England, we said, okay. Uh, we even gave back the military base after the volcano buried it. That's another story. Now, what was I getting to? Oh, yeah, immigration. The alarmists keep telling us that the American population in the United States is going to grow so large that we'll all be starving and dying of diseases because we'll be so crowded and unable to grow enough food and will destroy the environment because we have too many people out here in the United States. Those are the very same people who say that we should let in millions of immigrants, whether they come in legally or not. You can't have it both ways. If we have too many people and we should reduce our population, you can't let in millions of immigrants. Now, I'm all for reforming immigration. Oswald is here. Yay! People who follow the law and try to come here legally face so many roadblocks along the way. So let's make it easier for them before we break down the walls and let anyone and everyone just walk into our country and become citizens without even learning basic English, without even knowing our laws. Now, people who come here legally, they know our Constitution better than we do. They know our laws and 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 our language. You know, they might not be able to hold a highbrow intellectual conversation, but they know English and they can get by. They can communicate, and some are, well, quite a few who actually succeed in coming here legally are quite well educated and speak our language better than we do. And then there's Quebec. I could never survive there. The official language is French. I have known French Canadians, and their French is not exactly the same as French in France, kind of like the way someone in California can't understand an Australian. Oh, by the way, California is one of the three states with the most coronavirus cases. Um, Washington State, New York, and California. That actually makes sense, but I don't understand why Oregon doesn't have a problem. Well, they have a problem, just not as bad. Oh, yes, Oswald, I speak Schuldeutsch, school German. Anyway, I wish I could learn French. It does sound beautiful. But do you know how they spell things? Just, it's not as bad as Greek, or at least the Koine Greek of biblical times. Modern Greek sounds like Spanish to me, but uh, you know how they spell Eska? I'm probably going to spell it wrong. It's three words, something like that. Maybe Lady Zaga can spell it right. Cajun is phonetically spelled with the Acadian accent. Yeah, if I remember correctly, there are Cajuns in Canada as well as um, Louisiana. Cajun is actually the way they say Acadian. Wow. So, anyway, either we have too many people in the United States and we have to quit making more, or Louisiana is Creole Cajun. Okay, I'll buy that. I can't eat their food because I can't tolerate hot peppers. Now, where was I? You guys keep. Um, I think in French, the C in the middle of Eska has a little doohickey on the bottom. Anyway, stop making people. That's it. Thank you, Strontium. Either we have too many people and we have to reduce our population, or we don't have enough people and we should let more in. You can't do both. Oh, that's right. The Cajuns in Louisiana migrated from Canada. I forget why. Probably um, persecution. Ah, the British were persecuting them because they were French. That makes sense. Philosophers of antinatalism. Don't get me going on abortion. We have a morning after pill. If you were raped, go get one, if that's your choice. Don't wait till you're 6 months along and say, oh, it's okay to kill the baby because I was raped. You get the morning after pill to prevent that sort of thing. Fled the redcoats. Many of the redcoats were actually German mercenaries. And by the way, George III was really German. His grandfather, George I, never learned to speak English. He was German. Poor England has been ruled by the French and the Germans, and um, I think William of William and Mary was actually Dutch. Dutch or Danish? Danish? Well, anyway, Victoria's husband was Danish, Prince Albert. Wow. Yeah, well, the Queen is really German ethnically. I think they made Charles marry Lady Diana because she had a stronger claim to the throne than he did. She's descended from the Stuart monarchs of Scotland and England. James the First of England was James the Sixth of Scotland, uh, Elizabeth the First's nephew. Sadly, Charles Stuart was beheaded. Now, yeah, he did a lot of bad things, but the real reason why they killed him was because he was a Catholic and England had become Protestant, although I beg to differ. The Anglican Church is simply Catholic without the Pope, but that's another story. They brought back Charles II, his son. I think he ended up leaving, going into exile anyway. They drove out James II and put in William and Mary. Mary was, I believe she was Elizabeth's half sister or cousin, but they didn't want a woman on the throne, so she had to marry a prince, and he would be king and she would be queen, and they were co regents. Well, Charles the First was enacting some laws that a lot of people didn't like. So Cromwell, as head of parliament, I guess he was prime minister, he was able to use that against Charles the First. Oh, back to the redcoats. The German mercenaries were known as Hessians. They were soldiers who would work, professional soldiers who would work for anyone who paid them well. And they were very good soldiers, but when they came to the New World, their enemy were fighting for their own land and their own nation and their own freedom. And yet, even after all that, even after the War of 1812, in which the British tried to get back their colonies here, and even after the Civil War, the American Civil War, which was instigated by England because they figured if the South and the North split into separate countries, they'd have a better chance of conquering us and getting back their colonies. Even after all that, we consider England our mother country and our friends. Well, we did have Lady Saga seems to be using voice to text, or else it's a joke. Pun? A pun. Well, we did have a lot of robber barons and carpetbaggers in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Now they're the elite, wealthy and powerful Rockefellers and Gettys and um can't think. Ah, good. It is a good one, Lady Saga. Um, Fulbright, as in the Fulbright Scholarship. All these, you see, there's no such thing as white privilege. Having light skin gets you nowhere, except sunburned. The wealthy and powerful elite have privilege. They come from the right families. They have wealth and power that they're born into, so they never have to face the real world. And I guess I'm lucky that I did meet a small um, representation of them when I was in college. Even high school. In high school, one of my, well, she was a class above me, so not really a classmate, but one of the other students was Diane Cannon of the Cannon family. Um, they make more than cameras. When I was in college, I met, oh, yeah, Canon was also ITT Canon, International Telephone and Telegraph. They have a big Orange County headquarters where if you want to work there, you have to get security clearance. Oh, Lord. Don, YouTube thinks that Indian is a bad word. You should try Native American. Anyway, Courtney Siemens of the Siemens family was a classmate of mine in college, and they are privileged. If you aren't one of them, you're just poor white trash. You can have $1 million in the bank. It doesn't matter. You work for a living. You aren't one of them. They sit on the boards of corporations that cause most of the problems in this world. They have royal charters that they call public corporations that allow them to drive out small competitors. Well, oddly enough, in some places, notably New Orleans, the people of color are prejudiced. The ones with the darkest skin are the lowest on the totem pole or lowest in the pecking order. The lighter your skin, the higher your status in communities where they're people of color. I never had any privilege. Oh, I don't want to in the care what color your skin is, and that's how it should be everywhere. But it isn't. Now, I know I look white. I'm considered white. People who know Native Americans catch on immediately that I'm Cherokee, but I'm not much Cherokee. I'm just kind of a throwback, and I do look a lot like a reservation Cherokee. 16th, but probably half of as much as that. But one of my direct ancestors was a black African slave in Virginia. So in New Orleans, I would be classed as a fair skinned black. Yeah. Well, I've also known people from India, and you can tell a Brahma, the highest class, they look European. And the lowest classes, of course, are dark skinned. They apparently have a different ancestry. The highest class are more closely related to the Persians, the people of Iran. Wow. Central Quebec had no immigration or intermarriage. Oh, you couldn't marry someone who wasn't French? Hmm. Now, were they Catholic or Protestant or in Quebec or something else? I would imagine Catholic. The pure line, yeah. You know, we should have learned our lesson from all the racehorses that die. Animals are sickly things and fragile. Oh, yeah, Catholic figures. Yeah, Quebec has tried to stamp out the English language, and I guess they have their reasons, but I won't live there. I can't speak French. I can't. Anyway, and then there's the Habsburgs, who at one time really almost every country in Europe was ruled by a Habsburg, the Austrian line of royalty. And especially in Spain, if you look at the portraits of the Habsburgs were so inbred, their cousins. They had long, skinny faces, a cleft palate, and a hare lip. They had trouble eating and drinking because of the cleft palate. It's a hole in the roof of your mouth. And the reason Castilian Spanish is spoken with a lisp. The S comes out th like th is because, and I forget which one, but one of the kings of Spain could not say the S sound. He always lisped. So rather than embarrass him, that everyone in the court started lisping on purpose. So it isn't Castile, it's Castile. Now I'm having trouble saying the S because I'm not wearing my dentures. Hmm. Huh. Wow. First Nation. Which territory is almost entirely First Nation? Surely not Quebec. I have noticed that people who marry someone, I don't want to say race, there's just the human race. But if you marry someone who's from a different culture and physically different from yourself, you end up with the most beautiful children. Japanese and American, or Chinese and uh, English, or African and Hungarian, or Russian and Caribbean. The people from South America have a caste system in which the less native you are and the more European you are, you know, there's a hierarchy. Wow. Okay. That's that's French, Lady Zaga. Saguenay Lac Saint Jean. The Charlevoix Saguenay territories. Jack Kerouac, Don? Well, anyway, it's been over. Wow. One more thing. I'm sure the First Nations didn't call that river, okay, it would be Saguenay, called Tadoussac. Uh, oh, Jack Kerouac is French Canadian. Okay. Um, the English in particular, but us Americans too, are in the habit of calling countries anything but what their own people call it. The number one example, of course, is China. They don't call it that, but I can't pronounce their word for it, not in Mandarin or Cantonese, but it's Chinese for beautiful land, and it sounds nothing like China, which the British came up with because the first dynasty of emperors was the Qin. Burma is Myanmar, but the British couldn't say Myanmar, so they called it Burma, and so on and so forth. There will be a stream tomorrow, Oswald. Tomorrow at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, I will come on and talk about Greek gods and whatever pops up in the chat room. And today, um, I need to get off of YouTube and tend my Facebook group because people are complaining about what other people post there. Wow. Jacques Cousteau's son drowned there or died there anyway. Didn't know that. Um, some people post jokes to get the people to lighten up about the coronavirus. My favorite is that critter from The Lord of the Rings. Why don't I remember his name? The one who wants the ring so bad. And it's a picture of him saying, "My precious," and he's holding a roll of toilet paper. Gollum, thank you, Oswald. Smeagol. Yeah, now it's coming back to me. Well, anyway, and then there are the people who complain there's too many jokes on this page. We want information. And I have to find a balance between them because if I delete a joke, I get slammed. If I refuse to believe it, someone else slams me. So I try to put it up for a vote. Now my thing is people who stock up on toilet paper are idiots. They should be stocking up on liquor and cigarettes. Because in a true crisis, you can trade liquor and cigarettes for just about anything you want. I can get by without the toilet paper. Making moonshine out of toilet paper? Okay. Sorry you were homeless, Lady Saga. Glad you found a shelter. I lived in my car for 2 years, many years ago. I was working two jobs and living in my car. I couldn't come up with the deposits to rent an apartment, so I finally found a room for rent where the lady would let me have my two cats. The cats were with one of my brothers for 2 years before I finally rented a room and brought my kitty cats with me. Uh, no, Lady Saga, that isn't toilet paper. It's empty grocery bags, all bagged up. But I have enough toilet paper to last 1 week. I wouldn't want to live on the street. I don't think I'd last very long. But there are lots of alternatives to toilet paper, and what many people are doing is getting that attachment for your toilet to make a bidet. Sounds reasonable to me. That actually cleans your tail end without getting anything yucky on your hand. In a pinch, you could use a spray bottle like the one I used to make Tora quit chewing on the mommy. She'll wrap her paws around my arm and start chewing on my hand. She's usually careful not to hurt me, but one time she did break the skin. That is not good. Well, anyway, poetry section of the used bookstore. Actually, people are freaking stupid. They wiped out Costco twice and then they started wiping out grocery stores. Now, if you're willing to pay a little bit more, but not a outrageous price, try a liquor store or a gas station mini mart or a 7-Eleven. And just get one, people. You don't need, if you need 100 rolls of toilet paper, you should have seen the doctor 100 weeks ago. I have trouble asking for donations, and I only do that for local charity for the Lions. Uh, they're doing away with us Lionists so we can either quit or become lions. That kind of makes sense, but I'm going to miss the lioness culture. They're all one club. We're lions too, but we call ourselves lioness. And there are men and women in both lions and lioness. But lioness began when the lions did not allow women to join, but they had their wives cook and serve the dinner at their meetings. So the women organized themselves as the lioness so they could have meetings too and do service projects as lioness instead of on behalf of the men. One time I gave a guy $5 because he was standing at the end of the freeway ramp with a sign that said, "Why lie? I need a beer." But the next day he was there with the same sign, so I just rolled up the window and ignored him. But I did get a good laugh. Anyway, I've learned that a lot of these people who stand on the corner with a sign form little groups. At the end of the day, they pool all their money and buy drugs for everyone. Yeah, the homeless have many ways to get free food. I once offered one a job. He had a sign that said he's looking for work and he's outside the Home Depot. So I said, "Would you like to come help us fix the fence?" "Oh, no, it's all right. I already have a job." "Then why are you out there with that sign?" There's lots of free food. I was down in Redlands a few weeks ago. Redlands is a community near San Bernardino. And this little tiny mom and pop coffee shop was giving free coffee to anyone who walked in and asked for a free cup of coffee. Well, I didn't know that. I paid for my coffee, but that's okay. $5 for cigarettes, Don? That's cheap these days. Yeah, I guess it was worth it, Don. Anyway, I'm going to start promoting my GoFundMe. Um, I've been trying to get my house fixed up because it's going to rot away if I don't get the kitchen cupboards ripped out. They're moldy and rotting. But I also need to get a more reliable internet. So I should start pestering you guys with my GoFundMe. Yeah, I have plenty of food. The food bank gives us the USDA stuff. the free food. We used to call it government cheese, but you almost never get the Velveeta anymore. We get this thing called pork. It's a big round can. It's imitation spam, and when I started talking about that a few days ago, my internet went down. Yeah, I'd better not talk about the imitation ham word. Sorry it's glitching. I don't seem to be glitching here. Oh, but we got all kinds of noodles and spaghetti sauce and um, canned fruits and vegetables. What else? Oh, I got sliced turkey lunch meat. And there's so much of it, I can't eat it all before it goes bad. So I froze half of it, but I've been sharing the other half with my cat, which helps because then I don't have to buy cat food. Anyway, it really is time to go. I don't want to light a cigarette, it's just nervous fiddling. But I really have to go, but I will be back tomorrow. Let's see. See you tomorrow. Stinking phone. Well, yeah, it's a telemarketer. I thought they were supposed to quit that. Uh, at noon Pacific, which would be 10 o'clock at night over across the pond in England. And thank you all for listening. Uh, fix the typo and then hit enter. There you go. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Bye.